One of the best musicians of the 20th century is Robert Fripp. That being said, he didn't have wild hair, wear dark sunglasses, get into any love trouble, or try to please everyone. He did not want to be in the spotlight. He turned down both recognition and love, and it was exactly that trait that made him an icon. Fripp is what made King Crimson, the first progressive rock band, what it was. Each record was a whole new world of sound. They were ahead of their time and broke all the rules. Afterward, they disappeared, leaving no trace behind. At the same time that bands like Pink Floyd and Genesis were becoming very popular, King Crimson stayed a secret to most people because they were always changing and going to extreme places. So how did a quiet, aloof man who didn't try to sell himself or make people happy become known as the musical genius behind a whole genre? Why did famous musicians like David Bowie, Brian Eno, and Peter Gabriel all look for Fripp as a creator of new music? Robert Fripp didn't want to be popular. He was made to find sounds that no one else had heard. Childhood. Robert Fripp was born in the English town of Wimborne Minster on May 16, 1946. It is a quiet place in the county of Dorset. His dad, Arthur Fripp, was a busy but honest grocery store owner who strongly believed in the morals of the working class. He had a strict and practical mother named Edith. She never saw weakness in anyone, not even her own child. The family didn't have any artists, a music room, or philosophy books. There was only work, duty, and quiet. Fripp showed early on that he didn't quite fit in with the people around him. He learned to read when he was 4 years old and played chess when he was 6. He would often sit quietly for hours and think about things that most kids would never think about, like how time works or why people need to be alone. Robert, who was young, didn't have many friends at school, didn't talk much, and didn't fit in. But he wasn't a mess either. His teachers said he was too smart to teach and too quiet to scold. He found his sister's cheap, long-forgotten guitar tucked away in a corner when he was 11 years old. He felt like he had found a way to make his thoughts sound like music. He didn't know what it was yet. For Fripp, it was just a way to live without having to use words to describe himself. Fripp didn't have any close friends or play sports when he was a teen. To pass the time, he read philosophers of being and will like Kierkegaard, Nietzsche, and later G.A. Gurdjieff, while playing guitar in his own unique way for hours every day. He even played the guitar in a strange way, not to put on a show, but to find out how sound could represent vague ideas like space or the idea of self. Idea of Fripp didn't like being on stage. He had no hopes of becoming a star. In an interview many years later, he said that when he was 15, he was really set on becoming an accountant, which made sense and was supported by his family. He gave it up one day, not because he was bored, but because he couldn't live without being able to understand sound. His parents were shocked by his choice, because they had always thought that artists were lazy. During this time, Fripp started to develop a very strict personal routine. He set strict times for studying, practicing, meditating, and writing in a detailed diary. He didn't drink, smoke, or go to parties. A habit he kept up until he was well into his late 70s. He got up early every morning and trained alone. I do not think of myself as a guitar player. I am someone who is looking for sound. Fripp told his students in a master class that the guitar is just a tool. Robert Fripp's childhood and teen years were not marked by obvious tragedy, but deep down there was a quiet loneliness and a mind that didn't work the same way, self-questioning all the time, and a silent fight between the need to explore one's inner world and the pressures of society to fit in. In a world where how loud you spoke determined your worth, Fripp chose quiet and used it to make music that was different from everyone else's. Start of career. As a skilled musician, Robert Fripp didn't do what most people do when they turn 20. He didn't join cover bands or play bar gigs to make money. Instead, he studied the structure of music, practiced using his own method, and read philosophy while he worked on his skills. In London's music scene of the 1960s, he was a strange character, too serious, too quiet, and not interested in what people liked. Fripp joined the strange band Giles, Giles and Fripp in 1967. The band was made up of brothers Michael and Peter Giles and played a mix of pop jazz and classical music. Even though the group didn't do well at the box office, Fripp started to play around with the idea of music as a living structure that wasn't just something to be heard, but also something to be understood and mentally felt. Using that as a base, he co-founded King Crimson with a few other people in 1968, not as a normal band, but as a sort of artistic statement for the whole group. Fripp didn't sing and didn't talk much in public, but he was in charge of everything creative. The arrangements, the sound, the stage attitude, and even the artwork for the albums. He thought of the band as something that was always changing, and that the music was always getting better, no matter what the trends were. Their first record, In the Court of the Crimson King, came out in October 1969, and made me feel something right away. As far as rock music goes, this album had it all. Weird mellotron parts, wild growling guitar lines, ritualistic melodies, and words that made you think of the end of the world. Rolling Stone said it was a explosion of perception that blew your mind. It's the first true masterpiece of progressive rock, said Pete Townshend of The Who. For Fripp, though, that success wasn't the goal. A few months later, there were problems within the group. Greg Lake and Ian MacDonald both left at the same time. Some people couldn't work with Fripp because he was so picky about details and wouldn't give in, but he didn't seem to care. Fripp thought that King Crimson didn't have any real members. It was only meant for the song to last. I didn't make a band to keep it going. Fripp once said, I started a band to find out what no one had heard before. Over the next 5 years, he kept changing the band members and put out records like Red, Lark's Tongues, Aspic, Starless, and Bible Black. Each one was very different, extreme, and ahead of its time. Fripp wasn't looking for security. He was looking for something bigger, a holy and chaotic kind of music that could change people's minds. And this was just the start. Do well at work early in the 1970s, when progressive rock acts were at the height of their popularity, Robert Fripp took a quiet turn in a different direction. For him, success wasn't measured by how many songs were sold or how many people saw the show. It was measured by how deeply music could affect people. In 1973 and 1974, King Crimson put out 3 albums in a row: Lark's Tongues, Aspic, Starless, and Bible Black, Red. Suddenly, Fripp revealed that the band was breaking up because he thought music was becoming more of a product than an experience. He said that we were no longer making rights, but selling tickets. Fans were confused, and reviewers were upset about the choice, so Fripp left the stage and went into hiding. During this time, he learned Gurdjieff's theory from the British mystic J.G. Bennett. Fripp took classes in meditation, did manual work, and tried to live like a monk. He thought this was a way to clean the artist's mind so that he could go back to making music without any ego getting in the way. Fripp didn't change King Crimson when he came back either. Instead, he jumped right into a set of projects that broke all the rules. He played on David Bowie's Heroes album in 1977. The title track's strange sound came from Fripp's haunting, warped, long-sustained guitar work that sounded like it came from another world. Bowie saw Fripp as more than just a guitarist. He saw him as a spirit who could call sounds from other worlds. In the same year, he worked with Brian Eno on the albums No Pussyfooting and Later Evening Star, which were the first ambient albums to use tape loop methods that Fripp called Frippertronics. It didn't have any clear tunes or rhythms. Instead, it was just layers of sound that changed over time and opened up into a meditative sound space. Fripp was on Peter Gabriel's first solo record and worked with Daryl Hall, Blondie, and Talking Heads. He also taught the idea of music as a spiritual path in his own workshops. He brought King Crimson back to life in 1981, but in a completely different way. The band has a new sound and a new way of thinking. Discipline, the record that mixed post-punk, minimalism, and meditative thought, was a turning point. Many old bands got stuck using the same old ideas, but Fripp always stayed one step ahead and never did the same thing twice. "I don't want to turn into my old self," Fripp said. "I want the music to carry on, not be remembered." At every step, he took what he had built apart. Not out of contempt, but because he didn't want to stay the same. For Fripp, music wasn't a job. It was a sacred, life-changing ritual trip that never ended. Disputes, fights, and changes. Not only was Robert Fripp an unpredictable artist, he was also a terrible guy to work with. Fripp thought of music as a holy ritual, and anyone who didn't take it very seriously was thought to be on a different level of awareness. On more than 50 albums, King Crimson changed almost every member of the band. Fripp never tried to keep the band stable because he thought that when things were stable, they got stuck. But this theory also led to a lot of disagreements. Bill Bruford, a famous drummer, once said, "Fripp is a creative genius, but he wants full control over everything, from every drum beat to how you stand on stage." It was not the music that made many artists leave Crimson. It was the mental stress of working with him that made them want to quit. Even people who had worked together for a long time, like Adrian Belew, had disagreements. Fripp quit the music business in 2013 because he didn't believe that artists and the system would respect each other anymore. Not long after that, he reformed King Crimson without asking Belew back, which made fans angry. Fripp didn't give a reason. He just said, "Emotion is not the measure of artistic decisions." Fripp didn't just fight with other artists, though. The record business gave him a hard time for a long time. It took him years to figure out that labels, like EG Records, were abusing King Crimson's copyrights by re-releasing tracks without his permission. Fripp sued, wrote open letters, and spoke out against the music business, calling it unethical and built to take advantage of people. He started his own record label, Discipline Global Mobile, DGM, in the mid-1990s. It was based on the ideas of openness, fair profit sharing, and respect for artistic rights. DGM became an example for a lot of other independent acts to follow. His public picture caused him more trouble. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Fripp showed up out of the blue in a YouTube series called Sunday Lunch, where he played guitar while his singer-wife Toyah Willcox danced, wore crazy clothes, and sang rock hits. A lot of people were shocked. Was this really the same Robert Fripp? The public was split. Some said he was ruining the picture of the legend. People around him saw that Fripp was really having fun, maybe for the first time. Fripp's answer was short. It's a sign of a sick artist that he or she is putting himself first instead of the music. He didn't say sorry. He didn't say why. Because Robert Fripp knew this fact better than anyone else. Being misread for the rest of your life is the price you pay for having complete freedom. Off-stage personal life. Robert Fripp wasn't a rock star in every way. Not a single party, no hordes of fans, not even a TV in the living room. He was like a modern-day hermit. He got up at 6 a.m., played the guitar alone, meditated, read philosophy, and wrote down all of his thoughts in worn-out notebooks bound in leather. But he did not spend all of his time alone in his personal life. Fripp married singer-actress Toyah Willcox in 1986. Willcox was a wild punk star in Britain in the 1980s. No one saw that they would get married. He is calm, thoughtful, and well-behaved, while she is fiery, free-spirited, and not afraid to wear bright red lipstick and belt out "I want to be free" in the middle of a busy street. They shared an old house in Worcestershire where they lived together. Off the beaten path, timeless, and full of books, instruments, and sunshine. There were no kids, incidents, or shows. They have kept their life secret for more than 30 years. There will be no galas for the music business or riding in the Star Circus. But in that quiet place, they both knew one very important thing: complete respect for each person's rights. Fripp once said, "Toyah doesn't need me to fully understand her. I need to let her be herself, and she needs the same from me." His main focus was on unusual music projects, while she did theater, TV, writing, painting, and other art projects. Though they didn't do everything together, they were always there for each other and made each other feel safe. By 2020, COVID-19 had spread, and the UK was locked down. Toyah had a strange thought: make YouTube videos of them singing rock songs together in their kitchen. Fripp first said no, but then he agreed. For her, not the song. So, the Sunday Lunch video series was born, with Fripp, who was dressed very stoically, playing Metallica riffs on the guitar while his wife danced wildly, dressed up in silly outfits, and yelled cheeky lyrics. People laughed and scratched their heads as the videos went viral. Was this really Fripp, from King Crimson, who is cold and far away? It didn't bother him. They showed their love for each other without words or big romantic actions. They let the person they loved live her life fully in her own way. Robert Fripp didn't have a pretty love story in his personal life. It was a contrast between quiet and movement, between meditation and defiance, and between philosophical silence and laughter coming from the kitchen. Maybe only in that life will his music finally rest in peace. Legacies and power. That's not what Robert Fripp wanted to do when he refused to be a hero. Instead, he became the icon of refusal. In the music world, where charts and fan counts are often used to measure success, Fripp left behind a different legacy: complete artistic freedom and a musical philosophy that no other artist has been able to copy. Fripp made the most important and first influence on progressive rock. King Crimson wasn't just one of the first bands in its field. It was also a place where rock, jazz, classical, ambient, noise, and even meditation all mixed, played with, and changed. Each record was its own world that never came back. Tool, Dream Theater, Porcupine Tree, and maybe even Radiohead would not be around without King Crimson. Steven Wilson, who is the lead singer of Porcupine Tree, once said that Fripp drew every line on King Crimson's blank map of progressive rock. Fripp had an impact on more than just sound, though. He left behind an idea that says an artist shouldn't try to please the market, but should look for truth in every song. Through his record label Discipline Global Mobile, DGM, he fought for artists' rights, openness about earnings, and not using artistic intelligence for profit. He said many times in works and speeches that music is a moral act. It dies before it's heard if it's not honest. Another important thing he left behind was a guitar craft school that he started in 1985. A spiritual journey was taught along with technique. Students learned how to stand, breathe, be quiet, and listen to sound as if it were a live thing. A lot of well-known artists went, and they eventually called it a sound meditation school. Many people today listen to ambient music because of Fripp's work on records with Brian Eno, such as No Pussyfooting and Evening Star. His Frippertronics style, which used tape loops to build up sounds, would later be used by Autechre and 9 Inch Nails, among others. Still, Fripp may not have left behind the most important recordings. It comes from the idea that an artist can live without following any rules as long as they stay on their road. There were no ads or screaming to get people's attention. All they had was a guitar, their own thoughts, and the guts to say no. Fripp wrote that one honest note can last longer than a fake career that lasts 40 years. And it's possible that Robert Fripp became himself because he never tried to be anyone else. An important person in modern music history who can't be replaced. Right now. In 2025, Robert Fripp will be 79 years old. But unlike the idea of an old artist living in quiet nostalgia, he still gets up at 6 a.m. every day to play guitar, relax, and write down his thoughts in a leather-bound notebook that he keeps next to his bed. Fripp doesn't think of age as an end. It's just one more step on the artist's path. It's still where he and his wife, Toyah Willcox, live. The stone walls are covered in moss, and the only sound you can hear in the morning is the soft hum of guitar strings. They don't have parties or take people out, but they work like they're still young every day. After saying in 2012 that he was leaving the music business, Fripp was thought to have quit. He came back, though, stronger than ever. A new band was added to King Crimson in 2013. He did this not to follow the times, but to go against them. They put out bold action to break Monkey Mind's hold, Meltdown, and live in Mexico City. And they put on shows like Sacred Rituals. There were no routines, LED screens, or bright lights. There was only sound. 100% pure, raw, and unwavering. People who knew Fripp as a YouTuber would never become famous in the way he has since 2020. He wears a sharp suit and plays heavy metal hits like Enter Sandman and Chop Suey in the Sunday Lunch video series, while Toyah dances, dresses up in crazy outfits, screams lyrics, and sometimes cracks eggs on his head. Millions of people watched the videos, which made Fripp a weird kind of internet hero that was half real and half fake. Critics and longtime fans were not sure what to think, but Fripp stayed cool. That's not why I perform. I live, and people who are already dead inside can find living strange. He and Toyah continued their Sunday Lunch Rock Party tour across the UK in 2024. They played in small theaters, bringing both serious music and funny family moments. Fripp kept putting out new ambient recordings and essays on musical philosophy through DGM Live, a website he runs himself and is in charge of all the material and copyright. Robert Fripp has nothing left to show now that he is almost 80 years old. He never really left, so there is no way for him to come back.